I've been learning Spanish for over 9 years, and nowadays when I speak Spanish, many times people confuse me to be Mexican. So how did I get to this point? What routine did I follow in order to take my Spanish to the next level? Well, in this video, we're going to go over the 6 most important things you need to have in your Spanish routine, which are changing your mindset, learning grammar and vocabulary, speaking, listening, reading and writing, and of course, having fun. Now, before we get into the actual routine, first we need to get into our first rule, which is change your mindset. Now, you might already have a good mindset when it comes to learning Spanish, but I know many of us do not. What stories are you telling yourself? What is your internal dialogue when it comes to learning Spanish? I'm too old to learn Spanish. Young people have a way easier time learning Spanish. Learning Spanish takes forever. I'm never gonna learn this language. Are these the kinds of stories that you're telling yourself? Instead of, I am going to learn Spanish. It might take time, but I am going to learn Spanish. If you have a negative mindset when it comes to learning Spanish, you're already setting yourself up for failure. If you have a positive mindset, then you're setting yourself up for success. Can you learn conversational Spanish in 30 days? You're probably saying, hell no. Actually, the answer is hell yes. Because think about it. It all comes back to your mindset. If you tell yourself, man, I can learn Spanish in 30 days. It might take a lot of work, but I can do it. Then you bet you're gonna learn Spanish in 30 days. Are you gonna have a perfect Spanish after 30 days? Probably not. But if you say, hey, I'm going to speak conversational Spanish in 30 days and I'm gonna grind it out and I'm gonna go hard every single day, are you gonna see success? Of course you are. But if you say, man, that's not possible, no way, Spanish takes years and years to get good at, whatever, blah, 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 then that's what's gonna happen to you. All about the stories that you're telling yourself. So before you even get into a routine, you gotta make sure that you're telling yourself the right stories, that you have a positive mindset. Because if you have this kind of fixed mindset, you're gonna fail. If you have a growth mindset and you're like, all right, we're gonna do this, you're gonna succeed. Now, before we get into what you need to study, we need to get into how you need to study. Now, the first most important thing is to have a consistent time and place where you study. For example, I will study Spanish for 15 minutes at 7 p.m. after eating dinner using my Spanish course in my office. By having a consistent time and place to study, you're going to be way more consistent in your learning, which means you're going to be more successful. Study grammar and vocabulary. You might be thinking, Nate, I don't want to study grammar. I want to do a more immersion-based learning. Well, let me give you a story. When I was studying abroad in Spain for 3 months, I would go to a school where they only spoke to us in Spanish. Now, because I already had a more advanced Spanish level, this was totally fine for me. But for everyone who came into those classes, very little to no Spanish, they struggled a lot. And believe me, they were constantly asking me, what the heck is going on? Because just by throwing yourself into the ringer, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna learn the most effectively. Of course, being in an immersive environment is fantastic and it's hugely helpful when it comes to learning the language. But when you, as an adult, as opposed to being a baby, have these resources where you can study them, learn them, and know them in your mother tongue, most likely in English, and then put them into immersive environment, you're going to see way much more success. So you do need to be studying grammar. Now, of course, the best, easiest, and fastest way to learn grammar is by signing up to my Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy, obviously, but you do need to be studying some form of grammar every day. Now, I highly recommend that you learn a new concept, let's say on Monday, and throughout the week, you review that concept until you get it down fairly well. Now, you don't need to perfect it. That is huge. If you're a perfectionist, then you're gonna have to get over that because perfectionism is going to slow you way down. I kind of think about when I would learn a song on the piano. When I would learn a song on the piano in the past, I would learn a new part, let's say the first 10 seconds, and I'd kind of have it down, I'd still be stumbling, but instead of waiting to perfect it, I would move on to the next section because not only did that motivate me and make me more excited when learning the song, but in a weird way, by having to learn this new part, now all of a sudden the old part felt really easy, felt really seamless. Oh yeah, okay, why could I not get that little flat note before? Study a new concept, review it. You don't need to perfect it. You don't need to master it. Once you've got it down fairly well, then move on to a new concept. That's really important. Now, when it comes to learning vocabulary, flashcards are going to be your best friend. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you're using flashcards. When I was learning Spanish in high school, we would seriously probably do about 80 words a week on regular 3x5 flashcards. Sometimes we would write the word in English and then in the word on Spanish on the back, or we'd have Spanish and then an image on the other side. But flashcards are your best friend when it comes to learning Spanish vocabulary. Now, if you're going to be using a spaced repetition system like Anki, for example, I highly recommend that you learn max 10 words a day. Maybe even start with like 3. Seriously, because if you're not consistent with these spaced repetition flashcards, all of a sudden one day you're gonna have like 100 flashcards in a day and you might get overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, and eventually you'll stop using those flashcards. Consistency is the name of the game. While of course you could learn Spanish in 30 days, I would much rather you slowly learn Spanish and stay consistent instead of going crazy intense for a month, burning yourself out and never learning the language. Hey, if you want to speak Spanish just like me, go to SpanishWithNate.com. Now, our third step is you need to speak to people. Now, this is probably one of the biggest struggles that Spanish learners face. One reason because many of us when learning Spanish are not confident in our abilities, so we don't even try. We say, you know, I'm not even ready to speak with people yet, so you don't try. And this is a huge mistake. You need to put yourself out there, even if you're going to make mistakes, even if you feel like you're going to look silly. Because like I've said many times before, Spanish speakers want to help you learn. They're not gonna laugh at you and make fun of you. But the next problem that Spanish learners face is, who do I speak with? I live in a place where there's barely any Spanish speakers, or I don't know any Spanish speakers. Good for you. There are many amazing free resources out there so that you can start speaking Spanish with people. Now, the first resource is of course friends and family. If you do have friends and family who are Spanish speakers, speak with them every day. I remember when I was in high school, I would seriously tell my friend Luis, dude, do not speak to me in English. If you speak to me in English, I'm not gonna respond to you. Only speak to me in Spanish. Even though most times I had no idea what he was saying, by forcing myself to have him only speak in Spanish, I would say, whoa, okay, I keep hearing him say this word a lot or this phrase a lot. What does that mean? And I would go into my translator app. Spanish Dict is by far the best translator out there. It's fantastic. Get it right now. The awesome thing about Spanish Dict is, let's say for example, I keep hearing the word or the phrase ¿qué onda? I'm like, oh my gosh, what does ¿qué onda mean? Like, Luis keeps saying that. What does that mean? I look it up. It says, oh, that means what's up. That's what they say in Mexico. Well, you can go in on that app and you can actually add that to a vocab list. So now you can have flashcards of all of the different words and phrases that you're learning. Now, the next resource, of course, is going on Discord, of course, because when you join my Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy, you get access to our private Discord where you get to speak Spanish with a bunch of people. But if you don't do that, there's an amazing free option, and that is Hello Talk as well as Tandem. Now, these are basically just apps that are free language exchanges. You speak Spanish with someone and they practice their English with you. It's pretty simple. Those are fantastic free options. And finally, we have italki. I love italki, where you can take Spanish lessons with tutors from all over the world. Let's say you want to learn Puerto Rican Spanish, you can choose a teacher from Puerto Rico. It's fantastic. And while these lessons aren't free, they are very reasonably priced. Also, I'd like to make the point, I look at the videos that I first started making on this YouTube channel.
¿Cuántos años tienes?
20.
¿20 años?
Sí, ya ves mi bárbaro.
Tengo yo?
19, ya me dijiste, ¿no?
29.
Sí, es lo que dije. To the videos that I make now, speaking in Spanish. ¿Qué de nuevo contigo? Ya hace mucho tiempo que no nos vemos, como nunca.
Hasta los detalles oscuros.
Exactamente. Quiero todo. And oh my gosh, my Spanish over the past 3 years has become so much better. And I do believe that one of the primary reasons that this happened was because I was speaking Spanish so much. Speaking Spanish online with teachers, speaking Spanish online with random new people I was meeting, okay? I was speaking a lot of Spanish, and I still do, and you can really see the difference there. So that should be a testament to the power of speaking in Spanish. Okay, so the next rule is to listen to Spanish every day. Now, I know we're talking about the routine here, but basically the routine is study each day, 15 minutes, some grammar, put it into practice, speak with people. Now, next is going to be listening. Listening is huge. It is the easiest and most passive way to learn Spanish. By listening to Spanish every day, you are going to be hearing the new words, phrases, and concepts that you're learning about in your grammar book or course. You can listen to music. Oh my gosh, I listen to music in Spanish every day. Watch movies. Use subtitles in Spanish or English if you don't understand it first. Listen. Podcasts. Fantastic. I actually have a podcast, the Suave Spanish Podcast, where you can learn how to speak Spanish just by listening. TV shows are great. I remember watching Narcos Mexico or Narcos. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we've gone over studying grammar and vocabulary, speaking, listening, what's next? Now, I'm actually just gonna say texting because nowadays, I feel like we really don't write a whole lot. I text people in Spanish every day. Put your phone in Spanish and also have it on predictive text. For example, if you put on predictive text when learning Spanish, this is really going to help you learn the subjunctive mood because you'll see how much we actually do use the subjunctive in Spanish. Text people throughout the day. Hey, Carlos, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué pasa? Hey, Yasmin, ¿qué hay de nuevo? Texting is huge because then you're seeing how we actually use the language. Writing kind of goes in hand with reading. Now, of course, if you're texting people in Spanish, you're going to be reading Spanish as well, but I do highly recommend that you read in Spanish before you go to bed. Now, studies have shown that if you learn something before you go to sleep and then you process that information and wake up, you're more likely to retain the information that you studied before going to bed. So I highly recommend you read in Spanish before you go to bed. Two fantastic, easy beginner books for you could be El Principito and El Alquimista. Fantastic books. I've read both of them myself. And the last rule is to have fun. Sounds silly, sounds cliche, say whatever you want, but honestly, if you're not having fun, you're gonna stop learning Spanish. You're gonna burn yourself out, you're gonna give up, you're gonna lose motivation. Okay, let's go over what we've learned. Number one, you need to have a good mindset. If you have a negative mindset in Spanish, you've already set yourself up for failure. Have a positive mindset. Next, make sure that you have a consistent time and place to study. This is hugely important. Third, you need to sit down and you need to study grammar and vocabulary each day. I don't care if it's 5 minutes, I don't care if it's 500 minutes. You just need to be studying some form of grammar and vocabulary every day. Next is speaking. You don't need to speak with someone when you go and sit down and have your specific time and place for studying. Of course you can, but as long as you're speaking with someone every day, that is hugely important. Whether it's in the morning, at night, throughout the day, doesn't matter. You need to be speaking. Next is listening. Incorporate this into your learning routine. Have 5 minutes of audio into your learning routine, or listen to Spanish throughout the day, whether you're watching a movie in Spanish, watching a show, or of course, my favorite, listening to music in Spanish. Make it so that every time you drive your car, you only listen to audio in Spanish. That will really help you. Next, read and write in Spanish, okay? Text people in Spanish, hugely important. Read Spanish before you go to bed. That is awesome, that really helps. And finally, have fun. Relax, enjoy the process, love it, realize that learning Spanish is something that is a lifelong journey. Even though I've been learning Spanish for 9 years and my Spanish has gotten to an advanced level, I still consider myself to be a learner, and you need to do the same. Always gotta have that mindset. You can always learn something new. Muchas gracias por ver este video. Espero que te haya gustado. Si es así, por favor, dale un like y también suscríbete ya para que veas más videos chidos así como este. Y ahí nos vemos en el próximo. Adiós.